Okay, so good morning everyone. I'm Gorka Puente, I'm product manager in Comalatec, and in this presentation, Boris is going to talk about the methodology, and then I'm going to show you how can we use Canvas for Jira, a tool we have in the marketplace, to follow that methodology. What we are going to show you in the tool is not public. You can take pictures, whatever, but it's not yet on the marketplace. We are trying to refine the tool with feedback and to adapt our tool to this methodology. So feedback, comments, critics are always welcome. And Boris?
So, hallo. Ich werde meinen Teil, die Tonspur, auf Deutsch sprechen und auf Englisch. Weil Gorka nur Englisch spricht, möchten wir sicherstellen, dass wir schön synchronisiert sind. I will give my part of the audio tracking both German and English language, just to make sure that we're synchronized fully. Slides will be in English only, but it's most graphics, so it shouldn't be a big enough an issue. Slides sind auf Englisch. Aber ich denke, das ist kein großes Problem. Das erste, was man hier sieht an der Folie ist, wir haben den Vortrag umbenannt, weil da ein N gefehlt hat. Da war von TRACE the DRAGON die Rede. Und dann ist mir aufgefallen, ein N könnte ein wichtiger Buchstabe sein. N ist nicht nothing, sondern N hat mit Negotiation zu tun. Und wenn man es an einer Stelle weglässt, dann verliert man ein Team. Deswegen haben wir das so umgebaut und kam dann auf ein anderes Schlagwort, damit man es wieder merken kann. So, the N in the word TRANCE has been added. TRACE the DRAGON was the original title and we had to rename it. And you will learn about that in a second because there's good reason behind that. Now, entering into the whole context setting of why we are doing this. Why are we here today? What do we want to learn? I'll phrase it as a question, what about your current situation regarding productivity? Man muss sich ja erstmal so ein bisschen Gedanken machen und einen Kontext setzen. Warum macht man sowas wie eine Lösung, die zweidimensionale Matrizen hat, um Backlogs zu ranken? Wofür ist das gut? Dafür gibt es eine kleine Übung, die wir ein bisschen auf dem Flipchart vorbereitet haben. Um ein bisschen Zeit zu sparen, habe ich das eben vorgeschrieben. Aber die gehen wir jetzt mal gemeinsam durch. How about your current level of productivity in terms of net value impact? Also es geht darum, wie viel Impact generiere ich als Organisation mit meinem Wirken bezogen auf den Marktplatz. Das ist eine umständliche Ausdrucksweise für profitablen Umsatz. Aber so würde man es zum Beispiel übersetzen können. This is a lengthy kind of interpretation of profitable revenue generation, right? Net Value Impact könnte im schlimmsten Fall so niedrig sein wie 0,36. Da gibt es so Studien, die sagen, 36% aller Software-Features werden tatsächlich sogar ab und zu benutzt. 64% rarely to never are used. Also muss ich den positiven Fall für den Net Value Impact kalkulieren. Zweite Stufe multipliziere ich aus. Wenn man mal in so Studien reinguckt, die man auch teilweise im Internet findet, dann gibt es sehr häufig in speziell großen Organisationen ein Problem mit der Mitarbeitermotivation. Man redet dann von Bewohnern oder Leute sind Sodas, die sind nämlich so da, meistens von 9 bis 17 Uhr. So eine Stechkartenmentalität. Und das kommt nicht von alleine. In der Regel ist diesen Leuten über Dekaden aberzogen worden, kreativ mitzudenken und sich einzubringen. Die engagieren sich dann in Vereinen, gehen irgendwelchen Hobbys nach, haben eine Nebentätigkeit oder lauter solche interessanten Dinge. Also die benutzen ihr Hirn dann, wenn es ihnen was bringt. Und dann, wenn es ihnen weniger bringt, es zu benutzen, lassen sie das ausgeschaltet zu Hause auf dem Küchentisch liegen. Wenn man unterstellt, dass das 1/3 in großen Firmen betreffen kann, schlimmstenfalls, dann haben wir also nur 2/3 der Organisation am Start. Rechnen wir das hier rein. Und dann gibt es etwas aus dem Produktions- und Logistikumfeld, das nennt man die sogenannte Net Touch Time Ratio. Also die betrachtet eine Netto Touch Time, eine Netto Arbeitszeit, wann ich an einem Gegenstand rummanipuliere in der Fertigung, geteilt durch die Brutto Cycle Time, die Brutto Durchlaufzeit. Wie lange dauert es? Rohmaterial vorne in die Halle rein, Fertigware hinten raus. Sehr oft in nicht ganz so tollen Setups ungefähr 15%. Wenn man das jetzt mal ausmultipliziert, dann kommen 3,6% raus. Ich runde das jetzt fairerweise sogar auf. Dann hat man 4% Net Value Impact. Das ist ziemlich haarsträubend. Und es ist sehr gespannt, mal herauszufinden für die eigene Organisation, wo man denn so da steht. Weil in der Logistik oder in der Produktion, in der Fertigungsindustrie misst sich das ganz schnell. Production logistics is very easy to calculate this, because you just monitor inventories and you monitor cycle times on the shop floor. Na, in der Softwareindustrie ist es schwieriger, aber wir industrialisieren das ja alle gerade massivst. Deswegen sollte man sich sowas mal angucken. Und wenn man jetzt mal den positiven Fall aufmacht, nämlich den grünen hier unten, und sagt, na, man könnte ja mal was verbessern, könnte man ja mal annehmen, dass man es vielleicht schafft, nach dem Pareto-Prinzip dafür zu sorgen, dass 80% der Features, die man baut, tatsächlich benutzt werden. Das heißt also nicht, dass man einen Backlog nimmt und alles baut, was drin ist, sondern man muss sich überlegen, wie viel Prozent eines Backlogs muss ich denn bauen, um 80% des Net Value Impacts zu kriegen. Pareto-Prinzip würde sagen, naja, du rankst mal richtig gut durch und nimm mal die Top 20%, dann liegst du wahrscheinlich richtig. In Top 20% des Backlogs liegen Top 80% des Values. Wenn ich es schaffe, die Mitarbeiter besser zu motivieren und den Wert nur hochzuziehen auf 0,8, also von 5 Mitarbeitern sind 4 dabei mit eingeschaltet im Hirn und die haben da Lust drauf, dann habe ich hier einen Effekt. Und wenn man jetzt einen Benchmark mal anbringt aus der typischen Produktionsindustrie, wenn das Supply Chain wirklich gut funktioniert, dann ist die typische Ratio da 25%. Was passiert, wenn ich das ausmultipliziere? Der eine oder andere macht es vielleicht gerade schon mit dem Handy im Hintergrund. Ich habe mal eben kurz einen Productivity Gain von Faktor 4. Und deswegen machen wir die Session heute. Faktor 4. Viele von euch sind in Organisationen, wo man so ein bisschen über Improvement-Programme redet oder sogar welche durchführt. Da geht es dann um, ja, wir wollen uns 10% verbessern. Ich sage nicht, dass das schlechte Programme sind, don't get me wrong. 10% productivity gain also is worth doing. But there is a factor 4 that we can achieve if we are doing the right things in the right fashion. This one here reads, strong teams, strong processes, strong technology, strong software. I rather tend to say strong products because it's not only about software, it can include hardware and any type of service on top. So, there always is issues between Microsoft and Apple, I still guess there are. Gibt es immer noch welche. Wenn man diese persisting issues, is there a laser on this one? No?
Yeah.
No, it's fine. Fixing the persisting issues requires contributions from 3 disciplines. Diese 3 Disziplinen kommen aus dem Usability Engineering. Effektiv muss es sein. Das bedeutet building the right features, skipping the wrong ones. Da geht es schon um Priorisierung und dann sind wir bei einem Ranking. Efficiency using the right process, well-oiled engine. Und People Satisfaction. Das sind Mitarbeiter, das sind auch Endnutzer vom Kunden. Also da sind viele verschiedene menschliche Rollen involviert in dem ganzen Kontext, die wir heute jetzt nicht alle aufdröseln in einer Stunde. Es geht darum, get the quantum leap from high morale. Wenn ich einen Endnutzer habe, der höher motiviert ist, mir die richtigen Anforderungen zu übergeben, und wenn es Hidden Needs sind, dann kann es sein, dass ich sie ihm mit ein paar Tricks vielleicht aus dem Usability Engineering versuche zu entlocken. Kann sie mir vielleicht gar nicht explizit äußern, aber ich kriege die schon irgendwie raus. Und ich setze diese Anforderungen dann sauber strukturiert in ein Development-Team rein, die aus diesen Anforderungen ein Produkt bauen. Dann habe ich da eine Kette, die wahrscheinlich gut funktioniert. Das ist nur nochmal eine Wiederholung von dem, was ich hier gemacht habe. Das Entscheidende ist, dass man hier rausziehen kann, wenn man diese 3 Aspekte, das sind hier die 3 Faktoren, berücksichtigt, dann geht es darum, hier diesen Aspekt mit dem Control Work in Process, Control WIP, Aim for Single Piece Flow, mal als Lösungsvorschlag zu beantworten. Diesen Employee Morale Teil werde ich mich heute hier weiter nicht mehr kümmern. Auch ich muss mich ja fokussieren in so einer Session. So die fokussierten Aktivitäten, die wir hier haben, um sicherzustellen, dass wir nicht in ein schädliches Multitasking abdriften, was garantiert ein Produktivitätskiller ist. Dann geht ihr nämlich aus der Session nach einer Stunde raus und ich habe euch komplett verwirrt. Das ist nicht mein Ziel. Ich versuche möglichst zu fokussieren. So for today we will focus on the effectiveness bit of this formula. And we want to explain what to do to achieve a unified and synchronized corporate backlog, because that contributes to that bit of the equation. And if you check out on this equation, the largest quantum leap is from 036 to 08. Assuming this one, it would be doubling this here, right? Doubling this factor. The other ones also are increasing, but they do not double. So for the session, we aim for the one that we could potentially double. So now, I think we have set the context. Jetzt haben wir so den Rahmen gesetzt, warum kümmern wir uns um Backlog in dieser Session hier. Unified Backlog ist wichtig. Unified Backlog für die gesamte Organisation. Wenn jeder in seinem Team seinen Backlog hat, dann resultiert so ein bisschen das Spiel Mein Teekesselchen kann. Das ist super. Das habe ich auch immer im Landschulheim total gerne gespielt, damals so, als ich noch 12 war. Aber das ist nicht das, was in einer Firma funktioniert, wenn man eine Strategie verfolgen will. Und deswegen müssen wir uns Gedanken machen, wie kriegen wir so ein Unified Backlog hin. Deswegen machen wir jetzt eine kleine Einführung in zweidimensionales Ranking. Relativ simpel sehen wir eine Kaskade von links oben beginnend nach rechts unten runter. Von grob zu ein bisschen aufgeschlossen und fein granular. Dev-Teams arbeiten mit dem Level. Dieses Level, we call it user stories. As usual and established on the market, so there is nothing new to this. User stories is something that teams can take care of. Das hier sind bereits Epics. Nun ist der Epic-Begriff belegt. Man sollte ihn also verwenden, wie er definiert ist, wie die Community sich entschieden hat, ihn zu benutzen. Ich habe also hier nur gesagt, das sind Release-Epics, die kann man releasen, da kann man sprinten, das kann man in Release bauen. Das hier wären Value-Epics. Jetzt müssen wir uns Gedanken machen, wie kriegen wir diese Ranking-Matrices dazu und was bringen die uns? Warum haben wir die? Agile is about transparency. Im Scrum Guide ganz groß drin. 3 legs of Scrum. Transparency, inspection, adaptation. I think that's just a known one, right? Visualization ist das, was Transparenz generieren hilft. Also ist die Idee, statt einer typischerweise eindimensionalen flachen Liste, wie sie oben im Header dieser Folie noch drin steht, also zum Beispiel auch in einem Atlassian Jira Tool, ein Ranked Backlog in Form einer Tabelle, umzuschalten auf eine zweidimensionale Darstellung, weil man sich es einfach besser darstellen kann. The people, the humans, were actually built from nature to be visual. Our eyes are by far our most advanced developed organ that we have, because we needed them when we were down there in the Stone Age, the males being the hunters and the women taking care of the rest of the show, right? So basically, if we leverage the fact that our eyes are most prominently developed, it is an argument to switch from a one-dimensional flat list, representation of a backlog, to a two-dimensional one. So this two-dimension basically can incorporate two mutually independent dimensions, and this basically triggers a totally different way, and actually it empowers thinking. That's the argumentation why we go for two dimensions. Now we need to understand what the two dimensions look like across different levels. So the first level is, we assume that in a company we have people taking care of the strategy. Call them the portfolio managers. In smaller companies, this typically could involve the complete C-level. In larger companies, and for those who don't know, I have a background sort of twofold. I have a background from software engineering and software industries, SAP, which means we have like 20,000 developers and 60,000 people overall, so it's pretty large. And on the other hand, also I take care of small medium enterprises in a couple of cases. So we have this requirement to provide a solution that basically spans from just a mere dozen of people in an organization up to 5 digits. Now the idea is that no matter what the size of the company is, actually you will get the slides. For those who are interested, basically the resolution may be better than if you're taking photos all the time. But you can take photos, that's fine. One dimension is business value. And basically, business value goes along with what we know from Don Reinhardsen as cost of delay. So if there's a feature that has a certain value, you better produce it fast to make sure that you grab the revenue that you can make from it. Otherwise, you're suffering from inflation. Basically, that's all. That's the thinking. So it means that speed of delivery for the ones with high value should be rather high, and you want to plan a market launch sooner. The other ones, you can afford to have market entry done later, because speed of delivery can be lower, because business value is lower. Now the second dimension reads complexity. That goes along with risk. Auf Deutsch würde ich jetzt sagen, ist proportional zu. Ich bin mir nicht sicher, dass es ein linearer Zusammenhang ist. Es ist nur je mehr, desto mehr. Wie auch immer er besteht. Ja, es ist qualitativ. So uncertainty of delivery should be low, which means this is a thing that is completely in your control, in your hands. It's a safe bet to do it. And the other ones is actually risk and complexity are high. So you're in this kind of chaos type of thing. It's very volatile maybe. Maybe this is much more fun here. Cool, yeah. But sometimes you have to do something that brings in the money first to then actually make a lot of mistakes to spend it, right? Does that make sense with those two dimensions?
Could we have questions now or after the talk?
We aim to finish the whole thing by 11 to have a quarter of hour of questions. But if it's a question that would be just like answerable in a minute, I'd rather take it now.
Okay, I will ask it, we can decide.
Okay. Maybe we can go. That's it.
I'm struggling a bit with the relation between business value and cost of delay because, in my opinion, these are not related directly. You could have a feature with high business value, and then the cost of delay could be different based on is it a fixed cost of delay, or is it degrading, or is it rising?
Fair point.
I think a bit of clarification there.
I put that to the quarter of an hour at the end, and I think we are going to kill that slot straight, so we need to have a coffee chat thereafter. But that's a great feedback already. Thanks very much for that, right? It's exactly the point, when you design something like that, you always struggle, like you're not going to come up with the perfect answer. So actually, a lot of those terms up here, actually, one may resonate with you, so basically just adjust the template. And take the one that fits best with your organization, your unit, or whatever. That's exactly the point. So I'm not claiming that this is the ultimate truth. It's more like take it as a source of inspiration. Right? Maybe that is helpful. Okay, yeah.
Maybe one more. You say it seems that the top right is the good one.
Yeah.
And when I think about portfolio, you would like to have a couple of things that are for sure bringing money, but you want to have some things that are because there is the added value.
Exactly. And this is exactly what we need to figure out now because of the detailed texting here. You're exactly right. This basically means, actually the thing works like a black hole, right? It's a sucking value through the whole thing, like a Hoover, like each Staubsauger. Right? The idea is that any item that you come up with, any crazy idea, has to make up its way, starting from here, move up. And there's a trick, psychologically, for those who know how to work with it, very easy to detect. For the other ones, maybe not. This is like a cheat sheet. It reads, this is just an item, a parking lot, an item pool. But then you see that there's this dragon factor, and it's in light gray because the dragon factors, which we go through in a second, are completely fuzzy. Then they start to emerge. The dragon scheme is drafted, crafted, blended, and aligned. So it is like encounter style going through the alphabet. So when you come up with aligned, you know that this one is ready to be pulled. That's the idea behind it. So just to make sure that all the items make their way through. And now we come to the portfolio thinking. This is what the portfolio guys from Boston Consulting would rather call question marks. Now we have the symmetrical thing here, right? So it goes in both directions. There could be stars, but you don't know. And deciding on whether this is cash cows or dogs, you can't do in the early stage of development. You need to bring stuff to the market. So not all four of them are on here. Now let's go through these. How did we arrive at those? What the most of you guys, I think, will know is this invest scheme that comes with Agile. And that's pretty known. And I tried it out and it worked great in teams, but it did not work at all in middle managerial layers on product teams, and definitely did not work at all on portfolio level. Because those people thought that this is just too artificial. So what we actually did was we tried to figure out if Invest talks about readiness on team level for sprintable stories, what could be a corresponding thing that works better with the portfolio guy thinking and the program layer type of thinking in the middle. And that's how we derived at those, and then we just swapped the order to make sure we get a nice little term that is better and easy to remember. That's why it is now called Dragon. And it goes like this. Very often down there in the teams, you won't have in this Invest scheme something that is independent, one story is independent of another. Now, a cool thing and the typical Agile way of thinking would be reverse the problem. So take care of dependencies rather early. Very often we have the classical way of thinking, take care of dependencies late. That's why it's not going to work. It doesn't integrate. So if already by the design on the very early stage, we take care of dependencies basically just by writing them down and listing them, it fuels our thinking and we can try to figure out how to split, to come up with independent ones down there. Then of course we have to take into account risks. And the risk is basically a mere market view perspective. So the risk is, what about adoption of a certain feature from the market? Are we going to build a feature that somebody's going to be willing to pay for? This is exactly by what I mean with selecting the right features and discriminating the wrong ones. Then there always is assumptions. You better list them. Very often the assumptions are just sort of humble, tacit, they don't get outspoken, and then basically this is what typically kills you, because at the very late process stage, short before switching a solution to live, you figure out that integration doesn't work. And there's a law for it, it's called Conway's Law. The design of interfaces in a larger system represents the communication structures of the people who build it. If they wanted to work together, integration works. If they didn't actually know from each other, oops. And there could be worse scenarios even. Just to make it politically correct, because we are filmed here. General requirements and remarks is something that you always want to have there. This is the sectional miscellaneous. Just call it G to make dragon sound better. Out of scope aspects is a nice little thing. The art of the product owner to just say no. And make sure you write it down. And then the end comes in, because for all those first 5, you already know that there's tons of conflict potential in there. And you better solve them early, at least by writing down that you agree to disagree. Write the different points of your arm and basically list still open depending issues. That's a fair way to do it, but it's gonna be there and it's explicit and you can work against that, because sooner or later it has to be solved anyway. I think I need to speed up a bit. The middle layer now talks about when do we come from this value risk type of thinking towards something that we can start to implement. So this is a classical Eisenhower matrix. There is nothing special about this. I just spotted on Twitter that Björn Schotte from Mayflower had been giving a talk on that, or an open space session, I guess. So there was a nice little flip chart writing down different schemes on how to prioritize backlog items. So this goes for urgency, high to low, and importance, high to low. Right? So now, what we want to do here is also take care of having readiness criteria specified on a program layer that is appropriate to program managers level. And we always have to keep in mind also that in larger organizations, very often what we very often can assume is that people may have a classical education, whether they have this PMI style thing, Prince 2 certified project manager type of whatever role. And I don't bash against them. Actually, I'm one of them myself, so that's fine. I had to go for that stuff to make better contact to those, because now I'm understanding how they think. This is the suggestion on how to put readiness criteria on program layer level. There has to be a point in time where you decide about a technology stack. It can't be that any team for any individual story selects a technology stack themselves. Doesn't make sense. So there has to be a decision on this, or at least a proposal that then you need to verify. Then there is another risk section which is now about technology maturity. So if you have selected or proposed a stack, you need to figure out whether it will work, whether it will fit, whether you can get control of it. Then sometimes you have to deal with architectural runway matters. And this basically addresses hardware as well as software. Maybe this sounds fuzzy to hardware engineers, but at the end of the day, what they do when they build a new car and the frame, that's basically an architecture, right? So the negotiation bit comes in. This is the thing why I had to recall the whole session, or I had to rename it. Then you have to make sure that if you want to put this ever into operations, what is the collaboration model? Very often we have, in large companies, distributed delivery across a lot of locations, a lot of time zones. So the collaboration and the delivery model asks for where are the qualified locations, and you come up with a short list, because this is your options which boil down to. And the idea should be that you try to downsize to just one location, because then you can leverage the face-to-face communication, all the good stuff that comes with the Agile Manifesto. So that's all common sense. It's just a way of recrafting it. And then there will be still evaluation needs. So these still open issues where the portfolio guys just say, well, that's just black box for us, and they take care of it. And that's done for them already. They assume the solution is already there. Now here on that layer, that doesn't work anymore. So you have to make sure that you try to understand where are your open items, where do you need a plan B? And basically this section translates into the spikes that you need to do an early risk identification, coming back to this type of risk here, right? The last section I can actually go through Mach 3 velocity type of style, because that's just standard. That's the invest scheme. That is the same logic because the Eisenhower matrix just got repeated. The only difference is this is a 6x6 because of smaller items. The other one was a 4x4. And the rest is pretty known. As a persona, you can come up with this user story template. And there sometimes is the need to have this action result object parameters type of thing, where if you build a software that is not interactively used by humans, but rather is something where one software application calls out to another, you want to have rather try out this one. But that's basics. I'm pretty much speeding up a bit to make sure that we actually keep on time. Now, in the original slide, we had this idea to say we want to aim for a minimal work in process. We want to aim for single piece flow ideally. Now, how does this methodology support single piece flow thinking? Well, in a very subtle way, it's built in already, because it educates all the people working with it over time in a nice little and humble way to make sure that they start thinking in these terms. What you can see here is a logic from this coloring scheme with the flooding that rather thinks in rows. Dark gray, lighter gray, white, white with the silver writing, and so on. So you have diagonal shapes. Can you see them? Okay. Portfolio level. Program level, things in waves. A wave, top 4, top 9, top 16. Now the idea is if the portfolio guys, and at the beginning they always tend to fail this exercise, what they want to hand in, give me the top 10 items and start working on them straight. So you say, okay, 1, add 2 gives 3, add 3 gives 6, add 4, that's the top 10, right? So the top 10 items you hand over. Now here in that section, they actually don't fit the top 9 scheme because you have one more. So you have the top 16 to be filled. And this leaves you 6 empty places on that matrix. So 10 out of 16 are now filled with product backlog. 6 fields are empty. If you calculate the percentage, that's around 37% of loss. So 37% of capacity we will by intention use just for improving the process. Basically in logistics you will call that inventory carrying cost. And it enforces people to think differently. Because if you do the math and hand over just 6, they fit into the top 9, leaving 3 fields free. That's 1/3 of capacity reserved for continuous improvement, 33%. If you hand over top 3, they go into the top 4 here, leaving 1 field empty. That's 25% of capacity still reserved for continuous improvement. And this is what you want to claim from the teams. Otherwise, improvement will just not happen. And if improvement does not happen, you typically pay the price, which is even more expensive. Bad quality, high attrition rates, all this funny thing that starts to erode an organization. With the ideal insight over time that what they should hand over from the portfolio level into one unit, this comes multiply, so they can hand over more, but only 1 per unit, just the top 1. Because the top 1 here goes to the top 1 there. So officially, no extra capacity reserve. You just factor it in here by the way you split it and by the estimation technique. So that's the way how to model in single piece flow from a corporate backlog down to program layers, right? I think we would like to see a demo of what already is there in the software tool, right? So I'll just send over the remote control to you.
Yeah. Okay, for this demo, I have prepared a simplified example to try to apply this methodology. We are gonna see Canvas for Jira having the first part. It has 3 different modes. It has the rank mode, which is the methodology Boris just presented. The plan mode is in the first part, you define the work, then you plan the work, and in the last mode, you actually work. And for the first mode, the rank mode, we are going to have at the right these ranking metrics. Sorry. Yeah, these ranking metrics. And then at the left part, there are ranked lists of issues. So we are going to drag in a natural manner from left to right. The first layer, we have this 4x4 matrix. We have this theme in a space set of epics, and we start ranking, depending on the values that Boris mentioned, all those epics. So we are going to have one epic in the top part, in that black hole that Boris mentioned, which is going to be the TIS number 3. At the beginning, we thought that was going to be less important, but then we saw the value. So in the next step, we are going to work with the stories belonging to that epic. That epic has several stories. So we're going to move those stories that belong to the large team support epic. Then we go to the next layer. We have those stories there, and the process is the same. But now, having this Eisenhower method, we rank based on the importance, bottom up, and urgency, left to right. And the process is the same. You keep on ranking. Again, you drag very easily those stories. You have those stories already prioritized, and then we move from that 4x4 matrix to a 6x6 matrix. We have the very same stories, but then the team ranks in a more fine granularity. We are not working just with stories, but we have different issue types. We have bugs, we have tasks, we have improvements, we have new features. So we rank in a more fine granularity, in a smaller granularity. So we are, what we are doing, we are defining our backlog. What's going to be in the backlog? So that's important because in the next mode of working, in the plan mode, we are going to work with everything already defined. So we move to the plan mode, where we have a planned list at the right and a backlog matrix. This is important. This is our backlog. And we are going to start, depending on the team, you can plan based on releases, components, sprints, that's up to you. And again, we drag in a natural manner from a left part, in this case it's not a list but a matrix, to the right part. We have here the releases, we can have a components board, or we can have the sprints. But it's important, this is your backlog, and you can filter, you can use, here, you have the list. You have these quick filters, or you can use your jQuery. You can refine that dataset, that backlog, as you wish. Of course, you can save this to save it for another session. And here we have the actual and future sprints. So very easy with your team. You start planning the work. So remember, we define what is to be next on the marketplace or in the market. And then finally, this is the work mode, where we can have the normal Kanban view, but one important feature is that you can select any custom field, not only a status, or we can have this matrix, where we select not only the columns, but also the rows. And you can select any custom field, components, story points, project, assignees, priorities, whatever you have, you can have it here. And this is more focused for the daily task, for routine tasks. So for example, in Comalatec, this is the first thing we open in the morning. Each of us has a save board that you can share, but you can customize your own work, and you can here, and you just work in this last step. And yeah, it's a quick summary. Remember, you have different modes for different parts of your work. In the first, in the rank mode, you prepare the backlog with this agile ranking methodology. Then you define the work depending on releases, components, or sprints. And then in the last step, you just work, or the users just take this tool and just do the job. And that's everything. If you have any question now, or if you want to play with everything, we have this huge touch screen in the booth. You can come and you can play, and we can discuss everything. And Boris.
Okay, so we have now seen a couple of basic application scenarios that are already there, right? So is there already plannings to release that this year? I think not jumping ahead too much, maybe you want to keep it secret?
No, the plan mode is it's going to be released very soon.
Uh-huh.
And for the rank mode, we have to wait a couple of months.
Okay.
Hopefully.
Good.
Yeah. Maybe before summit or for the summit.
There's an Atlassian summit upcoming in October in the Bay Area of the US, West Coast. So there we take away the linen. Good. What I have brought now is, for the last 20 minutes, a couple of more advanced scenarios just to showcase how flexible a methodology like that can be actually used. Actually, when I developed this, it was all on paper. So those charts here are actually coming in the format of DIN A0 shape papers, 120 by 85 centimeters. They perfectly fit because I designed it that way with the commercially available 3M Post-it, the large ones and the smaller ones, so you can actually discriminate. The large ones are the epics, the smaller ones are the stories, and already the size of a piece of Post-it on the wall tells you what kind of granularity this is. And also the color coding does. But it's going to be much too detailed for now. A typical problem, because I have been a product owner myself, always was like, how many number ones do I have actually? And there always was more than one. So how many ones are there? Now the point is, if you put that in paper, you just wrap off the old one, put in the new one, you have another one in your hand, and you need to find a position on the matrix. Now in software, this is slightly different. In an interactive work mode, what we thought could be, you have a given state of a couple of stories. Now you bring in one more, and you would like to make it number one, so you drop it here. So the idea of the system is it doesn't just override, but it rather goes like this. Because now you can see, it's all about visualization. It creates transparency, because it means you have an unresolved situation. Now what you can do is, from psychology, we know that the direction that goes up is always preferable. That's the way we think as humans. You can tell by the shape of the people, the the males in the office wearing cravats, ties, right? These ones are more expensive than those ones, by the way. That's exactly why it's the case. So if we keep this one and we just have a small little button like save temporarily and continue ranking, that could be one way to resolve this. Because then the one that is on top actually gets preferred over the other, and we just rank them away and retrieve the ranked list back again because the positions are all 100% identified. Some features like this are just about to come into our minds of what to do with it. And I would like to open the discussion briefly if you have some ideas on that. I have just another second case then, just to make sure that we leverage the last 15 minutes of our session appropriately. I would like to enter into a more interactive mode. What do you think? Yes, please.
I really like it because I like tools that help you create a situation where you can have a conversation with everybody. So I don't think that it's in practice as easily doable as we've seen in the presentation. Like there will be tons of discussions before you have it all ranked like that. I mean,
yeah.
And it reminds me a lot. You know the matrices from David Anderson. They have 2 to 6 components, and then they look like spider graphics. So it's not 2 dimensions; it's like 5. So that you can incorporate more aspects that cost of delay and market risk, and can also. These are also in practice not that straightforward, but they also give you good basis to discuss things. And
Discussion
like
is about the weighing scheme there,
exactly,
right?
exactly, and it gives you vocabulary.
Yeah.
And same
Yeah.
as here, like all the
Yeah.
trends and the dragons,
Yeah.
it's all
Yeah.
so that people have the vocab to talk about things in the same and understand each other. So I really like it, and I love the presentation. It's really well done.
Okay, thanks. We are not yet finished. We have 15 minutes to go. Let's deliver more.
Yeah, but by the way, for the people who participate,
Yeah, sure. There was
That is good.
that should be at the end. Now
there was another question.
Yeah.
Maybe
What I think is like you usually stick to the first items, and the others will be like, because there was so much discussion about what is most important, that the other stuff will be like, oh, it doesn't matter whether it's 5, 7, or 15.
We will come back to this question number 2, which is the next slide in a second. Actually, what I can share with you, I tried this out at SAP with a group that has hubs in Waldorf, Germany. So it's a unit of 600 people, just to give you an idea on how large it is. And they have a large hub also at Shanghai, China. And the interesting thing about that dragon resonates extremely well with Chinese people. Because dragon is a very powerful metaphor, and it is very positive. Dragons are lucky type of animals, right? Lucky type of stuff. So they like it pretty much. Not necessarily meaning that they tend to use it straight away. There still needs to be like massaging it in, right? So change is nothing that you just do via slides. It is like effort. But I think with something like that, where this usability engineering and the tools come together more closely, I think we are on a sort of track that might be a path worth going, right? Okay, so second scenario. I always, when entering into product owner discussions, whether I'm giving a product owner course or whether I have a nice little debate with product owners over a cup of coffee or so, I have the situation that what they always tend to do is like, they try to go for number 1 first, which makes sense if they are in the urgency of having to deliver the backlog for the next sprint for 1 or more teams. But if they actually take some more time and prepare more strategically, so we are talking release plannings maybe or so, or if they are just good at the day-to-day job and they have done their homework and they can take some more time to actually figure out, it could be a different way of how to prioritize a backlog, not to start at the top 1 field. So not pouring in something from the flat list and dump it here on top 1, but rather saying, we populate those fields first And the game now is totally different because of the logic of a matrix. You have 1, then you have 3, then you have 5 fields per wave, and then you have 7. So if you put in 7, actually even in an arbitrary fashion, it could be just random, and you just decide which 2 you skip and you do not promote further. You promote further 5 of them. So this one was deselected, this one was deselected with the red axis, those 4 and this one were promoted. Now the next step of the exercise would be to figure out which 2 can I skip. So this harsh deprioritizing exercise is actually replaced by a more deferred promotion, which is much softer. And if you think about the discussion that you have as a PO with all your stakeholders, it is a total different game. Because the discussion with the stakeholder that gives them a requirement, and from their perspective it's extremely valid. And it has to be number 1, of course. And you just say, no, that ends the game. Maybe that ends the relationship. If you say, well, yes, but not now. So I put it on here, and it will see promotion soon, but we promote other ones first. Then people have the transparency that they are on your radar, that's the PO's radar. They get this notion that they are taken for serious. Of course, they will start to monitor whether their stuff makes it up sometime, and if you defer it for too long, you will have a nice little other type of discussion, but that's the way it is. And I think that could be one thing that also could be worth going for feature into a software tool, right? What is your thinking on that? So we have 10 minutes left now. Yes, please. I think that was the first.
It's an awesome idea because I faced it as a truck owner. Because I have also this nice chair backlog that is the one-dimensional.
Yeah.
And more than the top 3 stuff is just neglected by reading because everyone knows this is keeping me busy for the next couple of weeks, and my feature or my to-do is low, and everyone knows that it will take time. And this will definitely help me to emphasize that how I'm doing my stuff. So I totally can see that also with this deferred stuff that I know, for example, that although something can be in the lower quadrants, it's maybe still worth having a look at it because it can promote it much easier because something that's in the higher stage maybe not so important at all.
Yeah.
So that's
And also just to add to this, I didn't want to flood the whole picture here on that slide, but when you remember, I think it was back in 2013 when Ken Schwaber and Jeff Sutherland decided to rewrite a section of the Scrum Guide. The Scrum Guide was reading prioritized as a request for backlogs then. And then they changed it to ordered. Can you remember? The reason why they did it was that exactly something like that could happen. The ordering is something different than a mere quantitative prioritizing, because if you see dependencies on 2 of those, the dependency may actually favor to put them together as a bundle and give them to the same team in a sprint sequence or something. So that has an impact, an effect, let's call it an effect, on the way how you do your ranking. That's why prioritizing was taken out of the Scrum Guide and replaced by ordering. Because ordering may actually be taking into account more dimensions, like the ones that were just quoted a couple of minutes ago. Right. What else? We have 8 minutes left.
I think everything that helps driving the discussion and facilitates the discussion helps. And here we have a couple of ideas how to do that.
Yeah.
That's really good. And also the other way around, starting with the top, starting then eliminating your way up.
And it's a sort of democratic way. So you could influence a collaboration mode for a team actually standing in front of a huge multi-touch screen and just do it together. And that could be even distributed teams. At SAP, we regularly have the situation that even area product owners sit at different locations, very often product owners tend to sit in the target market, so in the US or in Europe, and the delivery is very often still offshore or nearshore mode. But you have to integrate those people in their roles. Otherwise, if you lose them, Conway's law comes in, right? Good. What else? Questions or comments?
Yeah, I'm wondering whether we have any commitment lines when you go from the portfolio mode to the program mode to the team mode. What happens if you have really number one on the portfolio level, but you discover that on the technology side it cannot happen?
Yeah. Yeah. That's a cool question. So is there stage gate thinking in there, or is it all open? Go back to this slide. In real life, as per my humble experience, that's why I have put in the step in here, right? That one really is a step down. So it is a cascade, and water tends not to flow up the hill, right? And those people typically do this type of thinking. So we still need to go for a couple of miles, if not years, to sort of make them also come to the same level. It's not on eye level, to be honest. In this case, and that's why I intentionally have done it that way, to have the yellow box putting them onto eye level, though there might be a cascade and a hierarchy still in there. I think they are already looping. In most cases they are. Because the people responsible for that level on the program are so much involved in the whole thing that they know that they will be doomed if they try to do it this way in town. Because then you are basically killing the swarm intelligence of all developers down there in the teams, and it doesn't make sense. So basically that's already like balanced.
But it's not visible in the tool that we're talking about.
Yes, not yet. And I think I'm wondering how to put that in. That would be a very interesting question and gives the usability engineers on a solution like that a massive challenge, I guess. But I think it's a challenge worth going for. Would you agree?
Absolutely. I mean, if you can solve that problem,
right.
I think people will be much more receptive to that solution.
Yeah. I think it's an hypothesis now. I think people from another generation, so a younger generation that we are going to see going into level 3 roles over a couple of next years, they will tend to work a little bit. Maybe it is not something that the established people, I'm not daring to say 50 plus, 55 plus or something, because that wouldn't help you, but the people established in this more like old school type of thinking, the pre-digital people that are still there, maybe they would not necessarily agree to what we are just reflecting on. But I think the young generation will, because they are totally different. So if generation Y enters the boardroom, sooner or later, then we'll be the game. Okay. Maybe a last question, I guess. 3 minutes left. Comments? Or do you want to go early for the coffee? No, Stefan has a question. Yes, please.
So we see now waterfall in a positive way, like the epics flow to the next level.
Yeah.
But another question is, how could we visualize dependencies? That would be great to visualize that. Okay, on paper you can do it like have some strings connected, and maybe it's an idea for software.
What I've seen on real physical boards, if it's like program boards, you have these strings. Whether sometimes it's just Gummibänder, the small ones, because they expand nicely. On a software tool, I could imagine you could try something color tool, different colors, but everything that color has one issue though. It is a question of accessibility. If there's a couple of males involved in using it, red-green just looks gray to them sometimes, and basically then this doesn't help, right? So we have to typically, like from usability engineering, 2 dimensions of how we discriminate to make sure it really works. So yeah, that's on the list, but it's not so easy. It's not so easy to do that. But it is a question that has to be solved anyway, because otherwise public sector excludes itself basically as an addressable market. Public sector very often is about very tough accessibility requirements. Otherwise you just cannot put that in. Neither on paper nor as a software tool. Good. Okay, if there's no further questions, I basically donate the 2 minutes to you. And in turn, it would be great if all of you could give us a signal on the Net Promoter Scheme here when you leave the room now. So the question is actually, how likely are you to recommend the concepts and solutions you just spotted in the session to a friend or colleague? Wie wahrscheinlich ist es, dass ihr das, was ihr hier gesehen habt, empfehlen würdet an einen Freund und einen Kollegen, dass er sich das mal anschauen sollte? 0, auf gar keinen Fall völlige Zeitverschwendung. Ja, das muss man gesehen haben. Einfach einen Stift nehmen, Strich ziehen, ja? Dass man so ein bisschen einsortiert. Weil das hilft uns. Wir kriegen ja ein Gefühl dafür, sind wir mit dem, was wir gemacht haben, on track. Für diejenigen von euch, weil ich jetzt doch, glaube ich, stark Englisch übergewichtet hatte in meinem Teil, ich bin den ganzen Tag da. Ich werde auf dem Commander-Tech-Booth meine Handynummer hinterlassen, weil wenn ich nicht am Booth bin, dann springe ich hier irgendwo rum, dann kriegt ihr mich auf dem Handy. Okay? Vielen Dank und noch einen schönen Tag und vielleicht sehen wir den einen oder anderen von euch bei einer Tasse Kaffee.